Hey, you're about to uncover key factors that transform snapshots or good images into great, impressive, and sometimes even awe-inspiring photographs. But before we get into the practical nitty-gritty, let's think. What makes a photo great? Is it completely subjective? To an extent, yes. But when it comes to travel and documentary photography, which is what this channel is about, there are certain qualities that will elevate a photo from the ordinary. We're talking about photographs that awaken emotions, convey a distinctive mood, and envelop you in an atmosphere. Photos that communicate a strong sense of story or a profound sense of place. And they do all this in a bold, unambiguous way. I reckon we can pretty much all agree that these qualities contribute to a photo's greatness. So now, what does it take to create such photos? What are the practical steps involved? I'm convinced that the answer lies in the concept that I've explored throughout this short video series. In visual cues. You might have seen the last video that I shot in the famous Uyuni salt flats in Bolivia. Well, I'm still here, taking advantage of the amazing surroundings and not a person in sight to interrupt me. As photographers, one of our main roles is actually to recognize a myriad of visual cues in order to communicate through our photographs. A photograph that communicates something at least has a chance to be great. The concept of visual cues is the foundation of a new educational resource that I've just launched. And I'm just saying you may be interested, so all the details are in the description below. Now, let's remember, what are visual cues? They can be a wide range of things. They could be something as simple as raindrops on a window, signifying wet weather, or as complex as body language, indicating a conversation and the nuances of a relationship between people. Motion blur implying movement can be a visual cue, as can the dome of a mosque, representing Islam. Or here, the Salt Sea. It's a visual cue for vast, open expanses, for the grandeur of nature. And my tiny car helps to really hammer home the point of the scale of it all. In essence, visual cues are elements within a frame that appeal to our emotions, senses, and our minds. Pretty much all extraordinary images are built around powerful visual cues. And what do I mean by building around visual cues? This simply refers to composing your image in such a way that the main visual cues are distinctive and dominant. They should be the standout element of your image, unmistakably. The power of composition is undeniable. That's why there are so many composition-related tutorials on YouTube. But composition remains an area where many people face challenges. In photography, you are confined to one frame. Unlike video, there's no motion and no sound. Every emotion, message, and story that you wish to communicate must be captured within this one frame. It is a demanding task, but when done right, it's pretty exhilarating. The magic of a photo lies in its potential to capture a whole world within this one frame. But remember, if your composition falls short, no matter how captivating your subject, how fascinating your story, or how beautiful your light, you won't end up with a great photo. So, framing, composition. What's the practical approach here? Well, I'd say don't get tangled up in rigid rules and formulas. Not everything calls for a formula. In fact, obsessing over formulas, as I know some of you do, can make us lose sight of what truly matters. Instead, let's go back to the basics. Building, composing photos around powerful visual cues. Your task is to accentuate these visual cues to the best of your ability. You can do this by getting up close, letting them occupy a large part of the frame. And this also applies if your visual cue is, let's say, a cloudy sky or the fog, like in this photo. I made sure to compose the image so that the fog dominates, so that it envelops the entire frame. You can also accentuate the main visual cues by creating contrast or through depth of field. There are different ways. You just have to think a little. Accentuating, emphasizing the key visual cues. Doing this should be your initial focus. Now, sure, the famous rule of thirds, leading lines, all these different principles, they do have their importance. But should they be your top priority? I don't think so. Most of the time, if we concentrate on accentuating the main visual cues, the rest of the elements will sort of fall into place naturally. By no means am I saying that you should discard the rules, because they are useful. I just want you to prioritize visual cues. Make them loud and clear, because that's what will make your images really resonate with your viewers. So you've made your key visual cues stand out. What's next? Now, I should say that in real-life scenarios, this process isn't a step-by-step thing. Things happen simultaneously. You emphasize the visual cues while striving to keep your composition as clean as possible. The significance of a clean composition cannot be understated. By clean, I mean free from elements that detract from your main visual cues, from the core idea, the story, the atmosphere that you are trying to convey. I emphasize as clean as possible because achieving a perfectly clean composition can be very challenging and at times even impossible. A clean composition leads to clear visual communication. It reduces any doubt or confusion in the minds of the viewers. When they look at your photos, whatever you aim to communicate doesn't get lost. No distractions. Only the elements that are relevant taking center stage. Just imagine that you had some bright, irrelevant object, let's say, here. And so a good, clean composition is definitely a step towards a great photo. But let me clarify something. Clean doesn't necessarily equate to simple. A composition can be complex, yet clean. It's just that crafting a clean composition becomes a bigger challenge when you introduce more complexity. So, in practical terms, what does this mean? First, I need to put some things into perspective. Let's talk about a genre of photography that has perhaps the highest potential for complex compositions: street photography. Top street photographers like Alex Webb confess that only a small percentage of their street photos turn out to be exceptional. Why? It's not just because getting all the right elements to align is tough. It's also because it's so challenging to achieve a complex yet clean composition amidst the chaos of a busy street. And this is just the reality, no going around it. Now, I wouldn't consider myself a street photographer, but I have made plenty of photos on the street, so I can definitely relate to Alex Webb's sentiment. And so I really enjoy making street photos in some places, but the patience that's required for street genre, it's not really my thing. I prefer making my photos where there are less compositional challenges, and maybe you will too. So where are those places? My favorite places are in rural areas, not just for the calm, but for their less cluttered, harmonious visual landscapes. And when it comes to photographing people, given a choice, I gravitate towards traditional societies, where there's a certain visual harmony too. The clothing, color schemes, patterns, everything seems to fit together, complementing one another. This is the case where people are still maintaining their traditions in the form of fashion. There are less distracting fluorescent colors or logos throwing a scene off balance. So I happen to love rural areas and getting to know traditional societies, but they also give me a better chance of success in terms of cleaner compositions. You obviously don't have to shoot in the same circumstances, but just keep in mind that certain circumstances do naturally set the stage for cleaner compositions. They are more favorable for photography, so just choose what resonates with you. But if it is a tough place like a busy, bustling city, keep your expectations realistic and be very patient. There are various techniques to help you achieve clean compositions. You can always alter your angle and shoot from below. You can move closer or zoom in to cut out the visual clutter. Such strategies, among many others, are all covered in much more depth in the educational resource that I'm launching right now. It's full of videos, case studies, exercises, and, well, I'm convinced that it'll help you create the best photos of your life. Now, of course, do keep in mind that in an absolutely chaotic situation, any techniques will be limited, and it'll all come down to patience and timing. And this brings me to the next point. Besides composition, timing is just super important to photography. And as you should have already understood, timing is tied to composition. This is because capturing a frame at the right moment can make your photo cleaner and clearer for the viewers, and also potentially more engaging to look at. But timing isn't only relevant to composition. Timing is about seizing the most impactful moment, whether it's the perfect instance of emotion that brings a feeling of energy or action, or maybe it's the exact moment when different elements come together to create a sense of story. So timing is especially important when you're photographing subjects that move or that are alive. But even static subjects can benefit from well-timed shots. Think capturing the most dramatic light of day or the most visually impactful weather conditions. Here your timing may not hinge on a split-second decision, but it remains a crucial factor. When all is said and done, the final detail that might turn a good photograph into an amazing one is an elusive ingredient. It's luck, serendipity, the element of surprise. Of course, the other elements need to be in place. A strong, clean composition, emphasizing the main visual cues, important. However, there are instances when something completely unexpected happens and it provides the magic that transforms your image into something uniquely special. For instance, take a look at this photo. Prior to this, I was just driving through the desert in harsh daylight. The first bit of luck came when this photogenic father and son from a distance waved me down and asked me for a lift to their village. And then another stroke of luck. Photographically speaking, a sandstorm began. The landscape was instantly draped in a dramatic veil of sand. Anticipating the moment when the father and son would come through this now captivating backdrop, I was ready with my finger on the shutter. And just as I was about to press it, even more luck. A gust of wind unfurled the father's turban, making this photo feel much more dynamic and alive. Now, a slightly simpler but also very lucky example. I was making some candid photos of this family in front of their house. Pretty standard everyday scene. And then this little dog just bursts into the frame. This serendipitous moment, his surprise really, takes the photo from, being good to something far more special. It's these moments of luck, the instances of the unexpected that add a bit of spice, leading to photographs that truly stand out. Now, to conclude, behind every great photo lies a deep understanding and intentional use of visual cues. Combine that with clean compositions, precise timing, and a bit of luck, and you have the recipe for not just great images, but truly exceptional ones. By implementing the steps mentioned in this video and welcoming a dash of good fortune, you're guaranteed to create photographs that are more than good. They'll communicate, resonate, and sometimes even inspire. Thank you for investing your time with me today. If you want to delve deeper into the art of visual cues and mastering visual communication, then you should definitely check out the new educational resource of mine that I've mentioned in this video. It's called The Ultimate Method to Amazing Photos. Because I'm currently launching it, it's available at a very special launch price. All the details are in the description. This was the last of the 3 video series on visual cues and visual communication. Missed the other 2? Make sure that you watch them, they're on the screen now. And if you enjoyed this video, please like it, share it, subscribe to my channel for more videos like this, and till next time.